Hi! I just got done after 3 or 4 hours of paperwork writing my appeal for parent contribution for the 2016-2017 year at Berkeley, and I just thought I'd rant a bit, not because of like what I had to a little bit about what I had to do. I was just gonna provide my experience being first generation and low income student at Berkeley. And it is difficult, okay? There are so many things I can complain about. Financial issues happened during this year at Berkeley, which is like probably the worst year it could have happened because it's my first year, and because of that I had to write an appeal right now asking if I could get more financial aid because the amount I would be getting is not enough to help contribute to paying for me to go and attend Berkeley. In general, any student would have to fill this out, but it's more especially so difficult for me because like I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I don't have anybody to help me. I don't really have anybody to ask. The only person I could have asked, which I did several times this year, was like the financial aid office. And so like my mom, who was helping me with it, like she doesn't really speak English and she doesn't know how the educational system works. So for me, I had to write a letter of explanation, and like I made like a cover letter. I had to provide like all this proof of like family income and blah 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 blah, and it was just a difficult process. There's not much things to like help you through it. It's just like two papers, and it just tells you like the basic things what you need to provide. Like you need to fill out these two papers, and you need a letter of explanation, and you need proof, and that's all they tell you. You kind of had to go about it yourself, and there's not really anything on the internet that I could find to like kind of go off of, so I was kind of winging it, and hopefully this gets approved because I need help with financial aid. Doing FAFSA for the first time as a senior in high school, that had me like pulling my hairs out because I didn't know how to do it, and I understand that there's like some educational programs you can do that will help you, but like nobody can really I don't know, unless you like pay somebody, which I know some people do. You have to fill it out yourself, and I don't understand how this income stuff works. Like I know they give you like numbers and like lines to look to, but I don't know, maybe I'm like looking at it wrong, like maybe I'm looking at the wrong form or like something. I'm pretty sure I'm on the right one though, and it's still kind of confusing for me, and it's like more difficult because like my family owns their own business, so it's like it's like kind of different. My parents don't really speak English and they don't know how it goes, so like my mom's just yelling at me like, why do you have to do this? And I'm just like, I don't know, like I just have to, I need financial aid. Like your parents don't really understand why you have to do this, and they're just annoyed that you have to. And like for me it's like I kind of don't have a choice, and I understand why they're annoyed and irritated, and I'm irritated too because I don't know how to do this on my own. And yeah, but you get through it, so there you go. You didn't know things like this existed. Like for example, when you have to pay for your attendance at Berkeley, basically. First of all, there's so many different websites for Berkeley that like in the beginning they're just kind of like all pushed in your face at once, and it's like I don't know which site to go to, and I don't understand how to pay for like this, and it says like this amount is due like right now, and I'm so confused because I don't know how to do this. I basically had to go to several different departments until I found like a place that could tell me how to pay for going to college. They looked at me like, yeah, you just kind of go here and here, and I was like, I don't know this, like I'm so confused. Like I swear I'm not stupid, it was just so confusing. And just like figuring out other basic things like scholarships, how to sign up for classes, how classes work, how majors work, the different breadths and different requirements. It's like going through high school again, like where you need your A through G requirements. I kind of figured it would be like that, but I still didn't really understand. Like nothing of this was explained to me like in high school, so I was like kind of confused. And like just having to go through all these departments when I never saw anybody else having to go to all these different departments every single day for like the first month to figure out their life pretty much. It was just me, and and I went like almost every day in between my classes because I was like just so confused, and I was like, okay, I know you explained this, but I'm so confused and I don't understand. The first thing you do when you meet people, I guess, is you say your major. Initially, I had been thinking of applying as an engineering major, but I changed to the last minute to be a math major because there was an additional essay. I honestly had no real reason why I would want to apply as a mechanical engineer major besides like, oh, it sounds interesting and I'm interested in it and I'm interested in learning more about it, but there was like, I have no background experience. I just felt like I wasn't really qualified to apply as this major with no prior experience and stuff like that. So I felt like it was a huge blemish on my application if I did put it. So I decided to go with a math major. This was like completely last minute out of the blue, and I'm so used to like always having a plan and always like knowing which direction I'm going in. But for once, when I got to Berkeley and everybody knew their major, everybody knew like what they were going to do with their major and what classes they needed to take and like all this stuff, like I felt completely lost. I was like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing with my life? I had no idea what the freak I was doing. I didn't know what classes I was supposed to take. I didn't realize that you could literally just look up like what classes do you have to take as a math major at Berkeley. Okay, I know that sounds really stupid, but like it's not really an obvious thing when you don't really have a reference to go off of. Yeah, but everybody seemed to know exactly what they were doing, and I just kind of felt like, oh, I guess I know what I'm doing. I came from a very underprivileged high school, and in addition like to being like low income, first gen, like not knowing all that stuff, and coming from underprivileged high school, like I felt like so unprepared for all the classes that I was taking at Berkeley, and I can't tell whether it's just like, oh, the classes are really hard, or like my high school didn't prepare me enough. I'm not failing my classes, but I'm getting P minuses, and I'm so not used to that compared to like being valedictorian at my high school, and I figured it would be a lot harder at Berkeley, but I'm working my butt off and getting B minuses, and that kind of is a punch in the face. I don't know. I know you shouldn't like really focus on the letter grade and focus more on the material that you're learning, and the grade will just come. That's what everybody says, but I honestly feel like I've learned a lot and I'm receiving a low grade for it, and I'm working my butt off. I felt like I put myself through hell. And on top of that, like, you're surrounded by the most genius people you could ever meet. Like, everybody's valedictorian, everybody's like done this, everybody's done that, everybody's taken like 20 AP classes and passed with 5s and like got 2400s on their SATs and blah 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 blah. I took 11 AP classes, but nowhere getting 5s on all of them. Our high school had a very low passing rate for their AP classes. Our high school average SAT score was a 1300 or 1200 or something super low like that, and like I got a 1700, which is still low, but comparatively it's higher. But I'm comparing it to like everybody else there who has like a 2100 or a 2200, and on top of that, a lot of them come from private schools, or they come from pretty top-notch high schools that are like ranked in the state or in the country. Don't get me wrong, like there's a lot of cool people at Berkeley. Like, I've met the most amazing people at Berkeley, but then there's also a lot of people who make you feel like crap because they don't really understand, I guess, sympathize or acknowledge that you come from a very different background, and so they when you don't understand something, they make you feel really dumb. Like, they're like, oh, well, like, how could you not know that? Or like, well, didn't your high school have this? Or like, they're very like arrogant sometimes, and you just kind of have to understand that like they came from a different background also, and they're just ignorant. Like, I was told one time by a person, because I was talking about like how I had to like do my payments or something online, and he was like, oh, I didn't even know this website existed. And I was like, oh yeah, like, where do you pay for your stuff then? And then he was like, oh, well, parents do it for me. And then I was like, oh, well, oh, that's cool, like, I kind of had to do it by myself, kind of a thing. And he was like, oh, well, my parents are smart enough to know how to use a computer. And I was like, I don't really know what to, I was very angry on the inside, but like at the time I was just like, did you really just say that? Like my parents are not stupid, but they are uneducated and they're not able to use technology as well as like other families who have been here for years, decades, generations can. So, but you're gonna meet people like that, and I'm sure you would meet them at any college. I've heard that this is a big thing at Berkeley where incoming students feel lost on campus, like they don't belong, and I definitely felt that for a while. I never really had a steady group of friends there. I loved all the friends that I made, like we got along really well, but I never had that close connection that I did with my friends from back home, where I'm like completely weird and I can be myself without worrying about like, oh, I have to be presentable, I have to always show that I am smart, I guess. Like I can't act dumb pretty much, or I can't act like a complete fool, I felt like. Or else people would be like, oh, she's not smart enough, or like, I don't know. There's just something where I didn't feel like I could be completely myself. Like the fact that I didn't know how to do a lot of the things that I guess privileged people, or like people who have had parents that went to college and stuff like that, that they knew how to do the basic things, that made me feel lost and like feeling like I didn't fit in, I guess. And honestly, it's just a lot harder to relate to people because I grew up from like such an underprivileged area that everybody was low income, everybody was first generation, everybody was a minority. It was just weird to be the only one there, or it felt like I was the only one there. I rarely met anybody who was like low income first generation like me, so it felt really weird that everybody was like, oh well, we had like 20 AP classes at our school and like everybody got 5s on them, or like, oh, I came from a private school, or like everybody in my school had money, or like, oh, I'm like the 3rd, 4th, 5th generation to go to college kind of a thing. It shouldn't make me feel dumb, but at the same time it does make me feel dumb because they know basic stuff that I don't know. Their parents were able to help them, support them through their school, like all the way until now. Like their parents can read their essays and like help correct them and stuff. Whereas like with my parents, like they stopped helping me on any sort of homework by the 3rd grade because they didn't know how to do math past basic math. Their English is not that great, so they can't help me on English. And they don't know really anything about history or science. So after the 3rd grade, they were not able to help me at all. As far as support, like their parents were able to watch like every single one of their games, like if they were in sports or anything, or like their performances if they performed. But since my parents worked all the time, they had never seen me play on any of my tennis games. They've watched me perform every once in a while, but like at a certain point I was just kind of like, you know, you don't really have to go because it takes time out of their day, and it takes time out of like the time that they could use working, I guess. At the end of the day, it's kind of like they're trying to support, but it's not really supportive. For example, in my CS class, there's people who are experienced in computer science, like who have taken it in high school or just have been programming for like since they were 9 years old or something crazy like that. And this was the first time that I had taken CS at all. CS is computer science, by the way. But this is like the first time I've ever done any sort of programming at all, and I was actually one of the minorities in that class. And this is like an intro class, like to the major. So you would think that since it's an intro class that there'd be more beginners. But yeah, this was a 1,000-person class, and I was one of the minorities, and like every single person that I met, I think I only met like maybe 2 or 3 people who had absolutely no experience like I did, but literally everybody else I met at least took like some other class or whatever. That was the hardest class I've ever had to take, but honestly I'm really glad that I took it because I felt like I learned so much, and it's what convinced me to possibly major or minor in CS. I definitely had to put in a lot more effort than a majority of the people there did. I spent my life on CS, like, I'm not even joking. I spent 14 plus hours a week in office hours every week. Like, if I wasn't in class, I was in office hours, and if there was no office hours, I would be in my dorm doing CS. Like, there was not a moment where I wasn't doing CS. And I've never done that for any other subject. For a lot of class subjects, I spent a lot more time on them. Like, reading in general, I learned that I read really slow compared to other people, and that makes me feel uncomfortable because they're like, oh, you're not done reading yet? And I'd be like, no, because I don't really understand it, so I'm rereading it. And they'd be like, how do you not understand it? It's so simple. Yeah, I feel like I'm making the people at Berkeley sound like dicks, but like, they're not. This is just me ranting, honestly, about like the things that I've dealt with so far. I feel like part of it is me needing to keep up to date with a lot of things that is posted around school or like on websites or something. I don't even know where these things are posted, but people who have done college things a lot, like in high school, or like they have parents who have been to college, they know a lot more about certain things like career fairs or like internships or programs or things like that that I didn't really know about until I met like my ballroom partner and stuff. Like, there's a lot of things that I don't know that a lot of people have known for years, and it's very obvious to them. Yeah, there's probably many more things that I've had to deal with as a first-gen low-income student, but these are just things that I came up with off the top of my head, and there are many positives to going to Berkeley and being a student at a university that I can definitely talk about in some other video, but this is just kind of like my forewarnings and just info. Thanks for watching.